I'm Linda. I live in Colorado with my husband of almost 27 years now. I was 19. I was a skier and a waitress. I'd spent the better part of a decade kind of dreaming about making the national freestyle team, competing, working multiple jobs just to try and piece it all together. And I think it was starting to dawn on me that that probably wasn't gonna happen. That wasn't in the cards. And I basically was in Hawaii licking my wounds a little bit and trying to figure out if I was gonna get up and keep trying, go back for another season, or whether it was time to let life take me in a different direction. I hadn't been there that long. I'd only been there maybe a month or two, and I met the father, fell right into bed with him. In about a minute, I was pregnant. And he was just awful. I mean, he just wanted nothing to do with it, nothing to do with me from the minute I told him. I mean, he was your basic, just nightmare. But I had support. I had some really great roommates. I had some really good friends out there. And I had just an amazing family back home. I didn't bring them into it. I didn't tell them, but I knew they were there. I never felt like I didn't have options. So I don't really think I lingered very long over the decision at all. I'm not even sure at the time that I even seriously considered having the child. I wanted the easy answer. And abortion was really easy. I wish I could say that I put more thought into it than that, but I just didn't. I wanted it to go away. I really was mortified. I was ashamed. I just wanted to outrun it. It was a pretty selfish decision. I mean, I don't even think I thought of anything but myself. You know, I didn't want to be pregnant, and I wanted to ski. I didn't want to be judged. I remember that. I thought I would be more judged if I tried to have a child at 19 than if I had an abortion. I mean, nobody judges that. I just pretty much made the call, got an appointment. I don't even think I had to pay a copay. My insurance covered everything. It was so easy. But I was not ready, and I was not prepared. I remember walking into that clinic and regretting it from the minute I laid down on that table. I remember laying there and just everything in me wanted to scream for it to stop, but I didn't. I cried. I remember that. I just lost it. I cried all the way home in the car. I locked myself in a bedroom and I started to cry, and I just lost total composure. And the thing that I remember is just being shocked and so confused because I just could not get a hold on myself. I couldn't contain the grief, what was going on with me. It just took me by surprise, and I was there for hours. I mean, I just cried. I think I threw up some more. I think I just cried and cried and cried, and not even sure I fully understood it. I wanted to take it all back so fast. Just something inside me just kind of gave up that day, I think. From there on out, everything looked and worked pretty good on paper. I went to school, I started a career, got a degree, I had a lot of friends, I had a lot of fun. I rafted and I skied, and I just threw myself into a lifestyle, you know, and it didn't look bad from outside in, but on the inside, I was just crumbling. I was drinking too much, I was playing too much. I remember I couldn't be alone in my apartment. I just hated to be by myself. I was no longer comfortable in my own skin. There was such a dark and lonely place inside of me, and I couldn't outrun that. I just knew something was broken. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know how to fix it. But I knew who could fix it. I knew God could. I loved God. I'd always loved God. And I think I was just low enough to finally ask him for help. So I came back down to Denver. I got some counseling. Somewhere along the lines in there, I just started to put my finger on the fact that I was deeply grieving. That abortion, it haunted me. It really did. And once I actually slowed down long enough to understand it, I was just taken back by what I had done. I'd always lived by this, live and let live kind of motto. I really never wanted to be that person that judged anybody. But somewhere along the lines, it just hit me that I could never claim to be that person anymore because I didn't live and let live. I mean, at the end of the day, I lived and let die. And in no amount of running or drinking or success or anything that I tried to do was ever going to change that fact. And so I remember I began to really pray that God would help me make peace with it. I really started to turn a corner in my life. I really did, out of that place. I was making progress, I was going to counseling, I was starting to understand a lot of things that had happened to me. I was going to church, which I hadn't done for a really long time, and really leaning into God, and really, that was bringing me a sense of peace that I hadn't had in a really, really long time. But old habits, they die hard, and I found myself pregnant again. I was 23. I was living at my parents' home, and I was just mortified. After knowing how much I had suffered after the first abortion, to even think that I would consider a second one, but man, that temptation was strong. I really had to wrestle with whether or not I could do it again. Luckily, the answer to that was just a definitive no. I just knew that if I took that life, ultimately, I would end up taking my own too. And I just dropped to my knees, and I remember telling the Lord, listen, I will have this child, and I will do whatever it is you want me to do. And I wasn't even off my knees. And that answer came so hard and so fast. And I just knew there was so much peace. I just knew I was going to have that child. I was going to place that child for adoption. I just felt like God said, this is what I have for you and your child. So I got up and I dialed the phone and I called the father and I said, I need you to meet me after work. He wanted an abortion. He begged me to give it time, to just let it simmer for a little while. So I got out of the car and I walked into my home. I crawled up on the foot of my parents' bed and I woke them up and I told them that I was pregnant again. Man, I was so ashamed. At the end of the day, our parents, they're for us. And they love us both times. My parents shocked me with their capacity for love and forgiveness and just acceptance and understanding. They just said, "We're with you and we'll be with you all the way." I think the next day I called the adoption agency. I had an appointment within a week. From the moment I made that decision, I had such a sense of peace. I had never known peace like that. God was just so faithful in it. Like, he even trumped my choice and told me exactly who to choose and exactly what to do. And the way he did it was so real and so personal. I've never known a God that would just communicate like that, but he did. He just answered the questions as they came up, and he walked me through the process. And there's just such a beauty to knowing that you were doing something for somebody else. I wanted her to have a family, and I was never going to be able to give her that. I didn't want her to be torn between two people that would never be together. And I had a chance to give her something really beautiful. And this family was really beautiful. But I will never forget, I walked out of that hospital, and it was a May Day. And I just felt this voice of God. She's just washed over me, and it just said, "You know what, baby? You see that blue sky? And you see that green grass? She's gonna feel that sun on her face. And she's gonna feel the grass in her toes. And you did that for me." That sense of worth, that sense of just value that I felt in that moment, it just erased everything. And I just knew that even though my heart was breaking, and even though I knew it was gonna be tough, I knew that I had just for once in my life made a good choice. And I had chosen life. And I just somehow knew that if I could do this, I could do anything and it was gonna be okay. And what God did on the backside of that decision is a book all in of itself. I chose life, and I got my life back. I met my husband actually a month after my daughter was born. I started a business, and that business carried my career for a better part of 20 years. My daughter actually, her adoptive mother, actually passed away when she was only 6 years old. And she really persuaded me to step back into my daughter's life when she got sick. But the way that God worked in those two families, and the things that he unfurled, and the way that we were able to be there, not just for her, but she had an older brother who was adopted, her father. It was a really beautiful story. And she's my daughter. I gave her up, and God gave her right back. It's not your typical story. I mean, there's a lot I missed out on, and I grieve that, and I know she does too, but we're close. She's a beautiful husband, beautiful daughter, about to turn 1, and she's given her life. This beautiful child has given her life to helping others. She's just such a bright light. We have so many choices every day. I cannot tell you how powerful it is to choose life. And if you find yourself in that circumstance, you have such an opportunity. You have no idea what God can do with it. Your life matters as much as the life of that child.